Have you ever wondered how cider is made? Well, it all starts with apples. But don't be fooled, cider isn't just apple juice. The difference lies in the process, which we will unravel in this video. We will take you through the cider making journey, from apple picking to the final pour. It's a fascinating process that transforms simple fruit into a delightful beverage. By the end of this video, you'll be familiar with the entire process of making cider. The first step in making cider involves gathering the apples. It's not just about picking any apple off the tree. You'll want to choose ripe and sweet ones, as they provide the best juice for your cider. The sweetness of an apple plays a vital role in the fermentation process, which ultimately determines the alcohol content and flavor of your cider. Now let's talk about the exciting part: apple variety. Different types of apples can result in different flavors of cider. If you want a crisp, tart cider, Granny Smith or Braeburn apples are a great choice. For a sweeter cider, try using Honeycrisp or Fuji apples, and don't be afraid to mix and match. Combining different apple varieties can lead to a unique, complex cider that's all your own. Once you have your apples, you're ready to move to the next step. Now it's time to crush and press the apples. This stage is where the magic begins. Start by washing your apples thoroughly. You want to remove any dirt, dust, or unwanted bugs. A simple rinse under cold water will do. Remember, the cleaner the apples, the purer your cider will taste. Once your apples are sparkling clean, it's time to crush them into a pulp. You can use a fruit crusher, or if you're feeling a bit rustic, you can use a wooden mallet and a sturdy bucket. The goal is to break down the apples into a consistency that resembles applesauce. This process is known as scrattling. Now it's time to press the apples. You'll need a cider press for this part. If you don't have one, they're quite easy to build, or you can often find them for rent. The press will squeeze every last drop of juice from your apple pulp. You want to extract as much juice as possible because, well, more juice equals more cider. Pressing is an art. You want to apply just the right amount of pressure. Too little, and you won't get all the juice. Too much, and you might end up with a lot of unwanted solids in your juice. It's a delicate balance, but with a bit of practice, you'll get the hang of it. After you've extracted the juice, you're ready for the next phase of cider making. The next step in making cider is fermentation. This is where the magic truly happens, where your sweet apple juice begins its transformation into the crisp, tangy cider we all love. At the heart of this transformation is a tiny yet mighty organism: yeast. Yeast is a type of fungus, and it's the star of the fermentation show. It feeds on the sugars in the apple juice, breaking them down into alcohol, carbon dioxide, and heat. This is what we call fermentation. The alcohol gives the cider its kick. The carbon dioxide provides the fizz and the heat. Well, that's where temperature control comes into play. Temperature control is crucial in fermentation. Yeast is a bit of a Goldilocks organism. It doesn't like it too hot or too cold. Ideally, you'd want to keep your fermenting cider at around 60 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Any cooler and the yeast might go dormant, stalling the fermentation. Any warmer, and you might end up with off flavors or even a dead yeast colony. Now, fermentation isn't an overnight process. It can take anywhere from a few days to a few weeks. The length of the fermentation process depends on several factors such as the type of yeast used, the initial sugar content of the juice, and the temperature at which fermentation occurs. But how do you know when fermentation is complete? The simplest way to tell is by observing the activity in your fermentation vessel. Once the bubbling slows down or stops completely, fermentation is likely completed. However, for a more accurate determination, you can use a hydrometer. This handy tool measures the amount of sugar left in the cider, letting you know when fermentation is done. Remember, patience is key during this stage. Don't rush the fermentation process. Let the yeast do its work, and in time, you'll be rewarded with a delicious homemade cider. Once fermentation is complete, it's time to bottle the cider. The final steps in the cider making process are bottling and aging. Now that your cider has completed its fermentation journey, it's time to bottle it up. But remember, cleanliness is paramount. Using clean, sterilized bottles is not just a suggestion, it's a necessity. Any lingering bacteria or yeasts could interfere with the final product, potentially ruining your hard work. To sterilize your bottles, you can use a homebrew sterilizing solution, or simply boil them in water for about 10 minutes. Once they're sterilized, it's time to siphon your cider into the bottles. Be careful not to disturb the sediment at the bottom of your fermentation vessel. It's perfectly normal, but it can cloud your cider and affect the flavor. Now let's talk about aging. Aging is the process where your cider gets to sit and mellow out. It's like a fine wine. The flavors meld together and become more complex over time. During this period, your cider will continue to clear and the flavor will deepen, becoming smoother and more rounded. Some ciders benefit from just a few weeks of aging, while others may need a few months. It's all about patience and allowing the cider to reach its full potential. So, store your bottles in a cool, dark place and let the magic happen. After a few weeks of aging, your cider will be ready to drink. So, that's how cider is made. From the initial gathering of ripe, juicy apples to the crucial steps of crushing and pressing, we've journeyed together through the fascinating process of fermentation. We've seen how patience and care in bottling and aging can transform simple apple juice into a delightful, refreshing cider. Now that you know how cider is made, why not give it a try yourself? You might be surprised at how satisfying it is to drink cider that you've made with your own hands.